in 10 seconds. So could probably share the slides. In 10 seconds. You could probably share the slides. Okay, so we're online now. Toni, would it be okay to share the slides? Thank you.
Sorry, I thought I was sharing the slides. Apologies.
10 seconds. Probably share slides. Welcome everyone to our BSGCT Public and Patient Engagement Seminar Series. I'm Sonam Gurung and I'm a researcher at UCL, and I've also recently joined the PPE Public and Patient Engagement Subcommittee for BSGCT, and I'll be your host for today. For anyone who is new, with these seminar series, we hope to provide information about this rapidly developing world of gene and cell therapy to various communities of patients, carers, and general public, and also researchers who are interested. And we also encourage participation from various patient groups and charities to increase interaction. And on that note, I'm very delighted to introduce Toni from NPUK. But before that, I did want to mention, if you have any questions, please put them on the live chat window. And if you have any issues with that, you can also email them to r.carda@ucl.ac.uk, as it's shown in the slide here. So I'll move on to introduce Toni. Thank you so much for agreeing to give this talk. I really appreciate it. So Toni, she has held the position of Chief Executive for Niemann-Pick UK, NPUK, since 2005. And she also has her personal experience in this role, gained as a parent of 3 children that were affected by this disease. But she also has amazing professional skills that she's gained during her career in marketing and human resources. And she has gained experience of providing patient perspective in over 20 years as a patient advocate, representing NPUK in their collaborative work with UK and international stakeholders in the rare disease field. And she's also a trustee of the International Niemann-Pick Disease Alliance, where she works with 24 patient groups in 17 countries. And she's also the founding director of the International NPUK Registry, NP Registry. And she's also the chair of UK LSD Patient Collaborative, a group of 12 UK-based patient organizations representing those affected by lysosomal storage disorders. Your bio sounds amazing, Toni, and I will just let you start the talk. And thank you again very much for agreeing to give this talk.
Thank you so much, Sonam. That's much appreciated. The introduction was very kind, and I just hope I can live up to that for this talk. So thank you everyone for your interest in listening to me. As Sonam said, I'm CEO of Niemann-Pick UK, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that organisation now, and also a little bit about my story and why I'm here in the first place. Niemann-Pick UK is now in its 31st year. And we have patients at the heart of everything we do, but also at the heart of everything we do is research and facilitating research that will lead to therapeutic innovation for this group of diseases, which is much needed. Of course, whilst we're supporting patients that are here now, that are living with these conditions, it's really important that we provide care and support, advocacy, raise awareness, collaborate nationally and internationally, provide opportunities for people to get together and discuss this condition, and make sure that we share information, accurate information and up-to-date information about these conditions. As I say, we've been here since 1991 and we work together for the benefit of the community, and we've always had the same very clear vision and shared goals that have got us through to where we are today. So why am I here? Well, in 2003, this happened. My husband and I were very excited to be expecting our first child, Lucy. And, when she was born, I suppose naively, we didn't expect to have any problems whatsoever. But when she was born by cesarean section, there was a silence in the room that told us, without us having to ask, that there was something wrong. And Lucy wasn't breathing when she was born, so she was whisked away from us to be resuscitated. And when they came back, they did get her breathing, but it seemed ages. It was probably only a matter of minutes, but it did seem like a very long time to us new parents. They came back and they said, "Oh, don't worry, she's got a bit of a large tummy, but I'm sure it's just wind and everything will be absolutely fine." Well, of course, it wasn't just wind, and Lucy went on to be in special care baby unit for a little while. And as things developed, 5 weeks later, we were told that she had Niemann-Pick disease type C. And that's quite unusual to receive a diagnosis at just 5 weeks old. I'm sure many of you will know that often rare diseases take a lot of time to diagnose because they're so complex and they have many different symptoms that replicate other diseases. So 5 weeks old was pretty good considering, but of course, that wasn't what we were thinking at the time. And as things progressed, we started to look on the internet, and we were told not to, of course, but we did, and we found Niemann-Pick UK. And I'm so pleased that we did, because I really wouldn't be able to be speaking to you today without the support and the help that we found through this organisation and its community. And this is our community right now. We have 158 people who are affected by Niemann-Pick diseases as a whole. And you'll see on this slide the different types of Niemann-Pick disease, which I'll discuss in a moment, but also not just the patients and families that we support, but there are health and social care professionals, research and industry stakeholders, and pretty much anyone else who is interested or wants information about Niemann-Pick disease. We will help everybody. So Niemann-Pick diseases are a group of ultra-rare genetic conditions. They're pan-ethnic and they affect all age groups. They're autosomal recessive inheritance, which means that it's a 1 in 4 chance with every pregnancy that a child could be affected. So both mum and dad have to be affected. They have to carry a mutated gene in order to pass it down to their children. And unfortunately, that's what's happened with my husband and I. At the time, I remember having genetic counselling, and they told us that it was a 1 in 160,000 chance of that happening. But I think that's reduced now significantly since in the 20 odd years since I've been involved. There are 2 commonly recognised forms of Niemann-Pick diseases, types A and B, and that's acid sphingomyelinase deficiency Niemann-Pick disease, which is a continuum of the same disease. And that has a prevalence estimated as 1 in 250,000. And then there is Niemann-Pick disease type C, which is genetically and biochemically different, and a prevalence of 1 in 100,000. And both have different and complex and challenging symptoms, and both shorten life. Of course, Lucy went on to experience all different symptoms of Niemann-Pick disease. And you can see from the photographs on this slide, you can see the first photograph when she was 2 years old and she was crawling and able to speak to us. Very few words she had, and she never walked, but she was gaining skills at that time. And then by 3 years old, she was starting to lose her skills. And by 4 years old, she was completely dependent. And during that time, we went on to have 2 further children, Hannah and Sam, who are represented by the stars on these slides. And I call them my little stars. And unfortunately, Hannah and Sam passed away in 2004. And Lucy, we lost her in 2007. So Niemann-Pick UK, what do we do? You know, the things that I've talked about already, we know that patients and families affected by this disease need help. They need care and support and advocacy services that don't exist elsewhere. There isn't anything that can help a family who is going through what we went through that is more like having someone that you can absolutely identify with. And that's one of the things that this community does. It gives families somewhere to identify with so that they're not alone. We can provide them with that very friendly face on the phone or on Zoom in person. We can make sure that they know that they aren't the only ones in the world who are going through what they're going through. So we provide that practical and emotional support, not just for the patient, but for the whole family. We can do it at home, at hospital, at school or work. We're there 24/7. My phone is never off. And sometimes that has been families calling during the middle of the night on Christmas Day. It doesn't matter. Niemann-Pick doesn't do 9 to 5. We have annual family conference and events. We bring people together, not just patients and families, but with researchers and scientists and clinicians as well. And we provide educational resources that support all of our stakeholders. And we have a strong social media presence, and that's very important these days as people communicate in so many different ways, and we have to make sure that we can do that too. Of course, one of the central points of our organisation is supporting research. It's really essential that we are seen to be supporting things that can make a difference for the future of our community. And we have over the years developed extensive contacts and networks that extend internationally, and it brings lots of different benefits for us in doing that. And we're able to help to stimulate research and to facilitate collaborations that wouldn't ordinarily have existed. We have supported and facilitated clinical trials and studies. We support surveys as well of the patient community. And that's one problem that we have as a patient community, is that everybody seems to want the same information. So we're very over-surveyed. And I'll tell you one of the strategies that we have for stopping that later in my talk. We provide small seed grants and bridge funding that helps scientists and researchers to go on to do bigger research projects, or helps them to obtain larger grants that will lead to differences for this condition. We also provide an interactive workshop on Niemann-Pick diseases, which happened just last weekend. And we bring together researchers and scientists from all over the world, along with a clinical community and some key patient voices. We have talks and discussions and interactive sessions that aim to stimulate progress in this condition. And that happens once a year. And we started off with that meeting back in, I want to say, well, it was 12 years ago, with 40 people in the room, and now we're over 100. We also provide an annual Trustee Memorial Award, and that is for an award of £1,000 that provides a student or a young career researcher with a small grant that will help them to develop their work in the Niemann-Pick field. And we do encourage people who are interested in applying for that. You can find more information on our website. We have a very active research committee as well, apologies, and they are responsible for the many different projects and strategies that we have in research. And one of the big questions that we deal with all of the time from our patients and families is what research is being done. It's one of the first things you ask as a parent when you have a child diagnosed with this condition: what's being done? Patients and families want to be involved in research. They want to know more about it. They want to ensure that they can access it if it's possible for their child or for their loved one. They're always asking, is there a cure? And of course, right now, the answer to that is no, there isn't, but there are therapeutic options and there are symptomatic reliefs that we can offer. When it comes to what treatments are available, there is one approved therapy for Niemann-Pick disease type C and another going through the NICE process for ASMD Niemann-Pick diseases. So that's all we can offer. But one of the things that we can offer is hope. And families tell us that research is their only hope. It's something that, they think about a lot, but, it's never fast enough, is it? They need to feel that they're doing something, but it takes too long. And we all know why. The processes are needed. We need to be safe. We need to make sure that something works. So whenever we are talking about research, we talk to patients and families about the fact that these are experiments, and the experiments aim to tell us whether something works or not. But everyone is still very eager to take part, especially when they feel that their child or their loved one is running out of time. Another question that we get all the time is, why can't research for rare diseases be fast-tracked? And of course, patients have watched what happened with the COVID trials. They've seen the vaccines be fast-tracked, and now they're asking, why can't we do that for rare disease drugs? So it's something that we're all talking about and wondering. The emotional, financial, and physical strains of research can be very great on families, and that can take its toll. And it can get to that point where it's overwhelming. And families tell us that in their experience, whilst they really want to be involved in research, they can feel overwhelmed with the surveys, the competing trials that happen in such a small population, and the choice that exists. We waited so many years for trials to come along. And then, like buses, 3 or 4 came along at once, and families were offered a choice. And that was incredibly difficult to deal with. But we were able to help guide them through that with, of course, the help of our expert clinical colleagues. There are often few centres that are running clinical trials, and there are long distances for patients and families to travel. So that can be a difficulty for them, especially when you have to consider other children, work, school. And the long days that exist with invasive procedures. How do they get back home after dealing with these things, and what support is available to them? So thinking about research, we talk through it very carefully with everyone who is interested to make sure that they feel fully informed and that they can make the decision that is right for them as to whether or not to take part. One thing to think about with research is, we talked about hope, and many families pin their hopes on what will be happening with a piece of research that they're taking part in, or a clinical trial that they're involved in. And there is a real impact when that piece of research or that trial fails to show results. And that's something we're there to pick up the pieces for. Why should patients be involved in research if there are so many challenges and they feel so overwhelmed? Well, of course, they're the primary beneficiaries of research, and the only way to make a difference to their lives is to involve them in this research. And their involvement can speed up that process because you are involving them in the design of a trial, perhaps, or the design of a study, or in understanding what their unmet needs are. They have that knowledge and expertise based on their experiences, and they can help you to determine the aims and the achievements of any piece of research. Of course, it's not without challenges, and it's always a good idea to help to manage expectations by telling people what to expect from the research and what they can expect to see come out of it for the future. Patient organisations, of course, can be very helpful in this process. We work very closely with our patients and families alongside clinicians and researchers, and we can help to identify what the unmet needs are or what might need to be looked at in terms of research. And we understand what is important to patients and families. We really take it seriously in making sure that their views and perspectives are taken into account, and that we're representing all of the different views that exist within a community. We work collaboratively to support funding bids. So perhaps if you are putting in a funding bid to a research-based organisation, we can help you by providing a letter of support or evidence of need for projects. We can support early stage projects in some cases, as I said earlier, by providing that seed funding or a very small amount to support consumables, perhaps. We can help to inform and educate your communities and our communities and help patients and families to understand the process of research. And very importantly, we can help to collect data and evidence that supports research. And as I said earlier, we can pick up the pieces when things don't quite go to plan. So patient organisations that I'm involved in, which Sonam very kindly mentioned at the beginning, was the LSD Collaborative, of which I'm currently chair, NPUK, of course, the INPDA, which has this month grown to 26 organisations in 19 countries, thanks to our recent international meeting, and the International Niemann-Pick Disease Registry. And all of these organisations work very closely together, and we're able to drive progress faster by doing that. So collaboration in this small rare disease communities is key. The International Niemann-Pick Disease Registry, which we created in partnership with patients and professionals back in 2012, is doing so well. You know, we are now in 18 different countries, and we're collecting information on both Niemann-Pick type C and ASMD across many clinical centres in those countries, and also encouraging patients and families to join through our patient-reported database, which they can sign up and consent to themselves, which means we don't need an organised healthcare system in order to have patients involved. So we're able to track patients across the world. Another piece of research that we have just completed from Niemann-Pick UK is a study looking at the experience of patients and families involved in clinical trials and getting their take on what it's like to be involved, what their feelings are about what they would like to see come out of research projects and clinical trials, and what would be the ideal treatment, and what about the risks that are involved in certain treatments and what their attitude to that is. And we recently published a poster that was shown at World in Florida earlier this year. So where are we now for Niemann-Pick diseases? Well, we have, as I said earlier, one approved therapeutic intervention for Niemann-Pick type C, which helps to slow the progression of the disease, but on its own is not enough to stop it in its tracks. We have 4 trials which ran concurrently, 3 in Niemann-Pick type C and 1 in ASMD. We have 2 that are currently recruiting for NPC, and a product going through NICE for ASMD, which is an enzyme replacement therapy, and hopefully will be very helpful for that community. We have multiple companies with an active interest in our diseases, and we're very grateful for that. As I said, when I came into this field, there was nothing at all, and it's great to see so much interest, and that presents its own challenges, of course, of being able to keep up with the many different requests that we get. And the registry is one of the ways in which we're helping to answer those requests and to provide the information and evidence that's needed to support this interest. And there are many other avenues being investigated for Niemann-Pick diseases, including gene therapy and mRNA therapies, and other items which we hope will lead to answers and solutions for our community in the future. And of course, you know, it goes without saying that, you know, we are here as a patient community to support people going forward, right from diagnosis through to bereavement and beyond. And there's still so much more that we have to do. And by working together, I believe that, you know, we'll take those steps one at a time, and we'll get there for our community, you know, with a little bit of help from everybody. And that's what we're here for. So I hope that's helped, and I hope it's given you a little bit of insight into Niemann-Pick diseases and the work that we do. And I'd love to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Toni. That was amazing, and it was really great to hear about the work that the charity does. And it must be quite, I mean, yeah, the amount of support that you give to the community, I think that's incredible. Oh, we have some questions as well, but I wanted to start firstly, as I said, it's just all the work that you and the charity does for parents, patients, and researchers. It's amazing. During your time as CEO of NPC, like, what's been the most challenging part? I mean, I guess it's a very open-ended question.
Yeah, so, well, there's many challenges. I think as a CEO of a small patient organisation, I'm always learning. There is so much to think about, especially when it comes to research and clinical trials and learning about the conditions themselves. So that was a steep learning curve for me coming into this field, but also in dealing with the many different opportunities that came along in the clinical trials space. That was a big challenge for us as a patient community, dealing with all of those buses that came along at once. As I say, we had nothing at all. We had no trials. All of a sudden we had 4 trials, and people had to try and make up their minds which one was right for them. And so that was a learning curve for us and a big challenge. But I think that the support of the clinical community, with that support, we were able to work through it and to make sure that people made informed choices and made the right choice for them.
Actually, on that note, because when I started my PhD, I wasn't working in rare diseases. So when I moved for my postdoc research to UCL, this is when I got introduced to the world of sort of rare diseases. So, as you said earlier about having a small rare patient population and not people not necessarily being aware of it so much. How different do you think it is now compared to when you started? Do you think more and more people are aware of these diseases and the research out there? Of course, there's still work to be done, but is the progress kind of what you hope to have achieved at this stage?
Well, I'll always say there's never enough progress. There always needs to be more, but I am encouraged by what we've seen. And within, I've been here since 2003 in this particular field now. So I have seen big changes over the years in the amount of awareness and knowledge that is out there. But if you don't know, you don't know. So the general population does not know about red disease or does not have enough awareness. And I do wonder whether we should be thinking of a different approach rather than calling them rare diseases or ultra rare diseases, which of course we are. But if we call them ultra rare diseases, then people go, okay, well, they're ultra rare, don't need to worry about them. But we want them to worry about them. We want them to change the future for anyone who's affected. So I think we need a wider approach. But for now, I'm very satisfied that there is interest and more funding, and possibly, we're looking at investment in the rare disease space. And of course, we saw that decline slightly with the economic issues that we're having, but hopefully it will head in the right direction and we will see more investment coming into this field.
Thank you. And kind of leading on with the patient work, what are your thoughts on sort of the parents' comments of fast-tracking research for treatments for NPC? I mean, of course, like, the research takes time and you can't just put something out there that hasn't been completely researched. But then I also understand the parent communities are very eager to have, especially with these diseases, which progresses so quickly over time.
Yeah, I think we would really like that to be taken into account. But we accept that everything has to be done properly and we need to be incredibly safe, especially when it comes to untested therapies or therapies that haven't been used extensively. We have seen fast track in other disease areas, perhaps in the cancer field, and it would be interesting to see whether these techniques and ideas could be applied across the rare disease space. But again, when we're dealing with rare conditions and with children, and especially with conditions like Niemann-Pick disease, which are so complex, then we accept that there has to be a particular process, and that process can be very lengthy. But it would be great to discuss that and to understand what opportunities there might be in the future to reduce the time it takes to get effective therapies to patients and families. And of course, that isn't just the research side of it, it's the approvals and the reimbursement as well.
Thank you. And you kind of alluded to some research that you are supporting as well, as early bridging funds, and also support that you could kind of give. You mentioned a bit about the mRNA and gene therapy. Can you share a bit more on that? I personally work on mRNA therapy myself, so I'm very eager to hear about novel therapies.
So, well, yeah. That one is incredibly early stage, and so I don't actually, this is when I say I'm always learning, so that is something that I'm going to have to learn a lot about, but the gene therapy has been in development at UCL for some time, and you know, we're hoping to see that go from the bench to the bedside at some point in time in the next couple of years, thanks to industry funding. So we're very happy to have been able to contribute to the process of that research, and to other things that are happening at the University of Oxford, in Cardiff University, and at Sheffield, and Nottingham as well. So we have different projects happening, and we also support a PhD student at Aston University as well, who is looking at quality of life measures in Niemann-Pick diseases.
Thank you. I don't think we have any more questions, but I just have one last question, if that's okay. You mentioned a bit about this sort of political landscape, which is, do you find that changes a lot, the sort of kind of maintaining that interest, not just in Niemann-Pick disease, but also in rare diseases, kind of maintaining that interest politically as well? Is that as well? I'm sure that's challenging, but is that as challenging as other things?
It is, yes, absolutely, incredibly challenging. It changes obviously with the government, and we're always trying to gain support and speak with MPs and others who are policymakers in terms of what they have planned for rare diseases. If you look at the Rare Disease National Plan and think about how long that has been in consideration, and now we're only just seeing it implemented very slowly, and of course that could change at any moment. So we are very keen to keep on lobbying and to make sure that rare diseases stay at the forefront, if we can, of people's minds as we move into the next government.
Thank you very much. I don't think we have any more questions coming in, so I think I will end it there. It's just past 7 p.m. Thank you again, Toni, for giving this fantastic talk, and also being amazing for agreeing to give this talk. I think otherwise we will have some seminars coming up next year, so we'll provide more information on that in due course. But otherwise, everyone have a nice Christmas and New Year, and hope to see you all next year. Thank you. I will just